The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and the trees were swaying in the gentle breeze. It was a perfect day for a camping trip, and the excitement was palpable in the air. Among the campers was a young boy named Alex, who came from a wealthy family and had never been on a camping trip before. He was eager to experience the great outdoors and all the adventures it promised. His parents had spared no expense in preparing him for this trip, buying him the latest camping gear and booking the best campsite available. As they arrived at the campsite, Alex's eyes widened with wonder and amazement. He couldn't wait to explore the forest, roast marshmallows by the campfire, and make new friends. As Alex settled into his tent, he couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. The forest was calling out to him, and he was eager to answer. He spent the first day of camp exploring the nearby trails, making new friends, and listening to the campfire stories. He felt like he finally found a place where he belonged, surrounded by nature and people who shared his passion for adventure. Little did Alex know that his newfound sense of belonging would be put to the test the very next day. The first day of camp was filled with excitement and wonder for Alex. As he arrived at the campsite, he was immediately drawn to the lush forest and the smell of fresh pine needles. He eagerly set up his tent, unpacked his gear, and headed out to explore the nearby trails. As he walked through the forest, Alex felt like he had stepped into a magical world. The trees towered over him, their branches swaying in the breeze, and the sunlight filtering through the leaves in a kaleidoscope of colors. He felt a sense of peace and tranquility that he had never experienced before, and he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The other campers were just as friendly and welcoming as the forest itself. They greeted Alex with open arms, eager to show him the ropes and introduce him to the wonders of camp life. They taught him how to build a campfire, cook his own meals over an open flame, and tie knots like a pro. Alex was amazed at their skills and felt a sense of camaraderie with them that he had never experienced before. As night fell and the campfire crackled, the campers gathered around to share stories and sing songs. Alex felt like he'd found a second family, one that shared his love of nature and adventure. He listened intently as the older campers shared tales of their own camping experiences, and he couldn't wait to create his own memories in the days to come. The first day of camp was everything Alex had hoped for and more. He felt alive and invigorated, surrounded by the beauty and wonder of the natural world. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey, and that he had much more to discover and explore in the days ahead. As the days at camp passed by, Alex's love for nature grew even stronger. He spent most of his time exploring the forest, looking for hidden trails and secret places. However, on one particular day, he strayed too far away from the campsite and got lost. At first, Alex wasn't worried. He had a map and a compass, and he was sure that he could find his way back. But as the sun began to set and the shadows grew longer, Alex realized that he was in trouble. He had lost his sense of direction, and the dense forest made it almost impossible to see anything beyond a few feet. As the night fell, Alex's anxiety grew. He knew that he was alone and vulnerable, and he began to imagine all sorts of dangers lurking in the darkness. He tried to keep calm, but his mind was racing, and his heart was pounding. The situation worsened when Alex accidentally fell into a deep hole in the ground. The fall was painful, and he couldn't move. He was trapped and alone, and no one around to help him. He shouted for help, but his voice was swallowed by the forest, and there was no answer. Alex felt like he was going to die. He was thirsty and hungry, and the pain in his leg was getting worse. He had never felt so alone and helpless in his life. He began to think about his family and how much he wished he could see them one last time. As the hours turned into days, Alex's situation became more desperate. He tried to conserve his energy and ration his supplies, but it was a losing battle. He was convinced that he was going to die in that hole, forgotten and alone, but it was then when a miracle happened. Jack was a homeless man who lived in the woods with his dog Lucky. One day, they were out to collect firewood when Lucky's sharp ears picked up on a faint cry in the distance. The cry sounded like it was coming from a nearby hill, and without a moment's hesitation, John and Lucky made their way towards the sound. They were determined to rescue the boy, no matter the cost. As they approached the top of the hill, they saw a small hole in the ground. It was the size of a manhole cover, and it was covered with dirt and leaves. John carefully removed the debris and to his shock, he saw a boy lying at the bottom of the hole. John quickly lowered himself into the hole and assessed the boy's condition. The boy was dehydrated and hungry, and he had a few minor injuries. John knew that they had to act fast if they were going to get the boy out of the hole and back to safety. He quickly made a makeshift harness out of his backpack and ropes that he had brought along, and with Lucky's help, they managed to hoist the boy out of the hole. Jack used his survival skills to tend to the boy's injuries and gave him some food and water to regain his strength. The homeless man and his dog then took Alex under their wing and brought him back to their makeshift camp where he could rest and recover. As Alex recovered from this ordeal, he began to learn more about the man who had saved him. His name was Jack, and he was a homeless veteran who had served in the army for many years. Jack had seen and experienced things that most people could not even imagine, and he had struggled with addiction and mental health issues for a long time. Despite all of this, Jack was one of the most kind-hearted and generous people that Alex had ever met. He shared what little food and supplies he had with Alex, and he would spend hours talking to him about his life experiences and the lessons he had learned. Alex found himself fascinated by Jack's stories. He had always lived a privileged life, shielded from the harsh realities of the world. But listening to Jack's tales of survival and perseverance, he began to appreciate the strength and resilience of the human spirit. He realized that the man who had saved him, a homeless veteran with nothing to his name, was one of the most generous and kind-hearted people he had ever met. He vowed to use his privilege and resources to make a difference in the world and to help those who are less fortunate. As Alex spent more time with Jack, he began to see him in a different light. He was no longer just a homeless man, but a veteran with a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. Alex felt grateful for the chance encounter that had brought them together, and he knew that he had learned more from Jack than he'd ever could have at school or at home. Meanwhile, Alex's parents had contacted the authorities as soon as they realized their son was missing. A search party had been organized, and teams of volunteers were scouring the area in search of any signs for the lost camper. The search went on for days, with no success. Alex's parents were beside themselves with worry, and they prayed that their son was still alive. It was then that Jack had a stroke of luck. He was out collecting firewood to make fire for Alex to keep him warm when he stumbled across a ranger who was part of the search party. Jack told the ranger about the young boy he had rescued, and the ranger immediately recognized the description as Alex. The ranger called for backup, and soon a team of rescuers was on the scene. They followed Jack's directions back to his shelter camp. Alex's heart leaped with joy when he heard the sound of rescue workers approaching. He had been trapped in the hole for days, and even after the rescue from Jack, he was still very weak and delirious from hunger and dehydration, and in need of medical help. The rescue team worked quickly to transport Alex, and he was whisked away to the hospital for treatment. His parents were overjoyed to be reunited with their son, and they thanked Jack for his heroic actions. Alex returned home from the hospital with a newfound appreciation for life. He had survived a harrowing experience, and he was grateful for every moment he spent with his family and friends. Years passed, and Alex continued to dedicate himself to helping homeless veterans. He had started his own foundation, which had raised millions of dollars for various organizations that supported veterans' needs, such as providing housing, job training, and mental health services. The foundation had become one of the most successful and influential in the country, and Alex was constantly on the move, visiting veterans' homes and meeting with government officials to advocate for their rights. Jack had also made some great strides since he had met Alex. With the help of his friend and mentor, he'd been able to get sober, and he'd even found a small house to rent in a nearby town. Although he still loved spending time in the woods, he was now able to enjoy some of the comforts of a more traditional life. He had also become a passionate advocate for homeless veterans, and he was frequently invited to speak at events and rallies. Together, Alex and Jack had created a powerful partnership, one that had changed the lives of countless veterans and inspired countless others to get involved. The story of Alex and Jack is a testament to the power of human connection and the resilience of the human spirit. It also shows us that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, and that with the right support and encouragement, we can overcome even the greatest obstacles. We should always be mindful of the struggles that others are facing, and we should do what we can to help those in need. Whether it's donating money to a good cause, volunteering our time, or simply being kind to those we meet, we all have the power to make a difference in the world. So let us be inspired by the example set by Alex and Jack. and let us strive to be the kind of people who make a positive impact on the world around us. Let us never forget the lessons they have taught us, and let us always be mindful of the power of compassion and empathy. If you like this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more.